TC Spiritual Shepherd. Welcome back to the Spiritual Shepherd YouTube channel. Just so you guys know, this is Kevin Poe. He is fantastic, man. We always have plenty of amazing conversations, and we're going to get into, a very in-depth podcast that you guys can very much enjoy and listen to 10 times over. So let's kind of jump straight into it, Kev. Take it away, bro.
Yeah, let's go. Thank you, TC, for having me. I think the brilliant idea with having this conversation is having these concepts discussed by people who are actually going through the process of learning, self-actualizing, discovering, and shedding, and all these, what we all go through, darkness of the soul, winter arc, light arc, winter arc, whatever. It's still us going through that process. And I would like to share the perspective of the average human. Like, how does the average human go through this? How does he learn about what these elements of his experience are, his or her experience is, right?
Right.
Um, so going to like, since I'm sure people listening are a bit advanced, jumping forward a bit, going to if we know now we are the mind, body, and the spirit, the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, the mind, body, soul.
Yeah. So how do we practice this so-called what is spiritual, right? And I think spiritual is awakening to your true nature. That's what spiritual is for me, and being authentic to your nature, right? So the three things that I would say that we learn of with the mind, body, spirit is basically like spiritual hygiene for said three, right? When growing up, nobody mentioned spiritual hygiene ever, right? So
Right.
spiritual hygiene meaning like how what aligns more with our mind, body, and spirit. So that's where the process of, you know, learning who you are, understanding who you are, why you're reacting away, it boils down towards this direction. What we wanted to talk about was the sacred secretion. So
Yeah,
the
sacred
sacred
secretion too. And like with the sacred secretion and with, the bride, the bridegroom, the masculine, the feminine, the mind, body, soul connection. These are all different, I guess you could say like depictions or pictures or images that give you certain imagination and imagery for you to actually see your spiritual realization and actualization is kind of some of the stuff that we talk about, which is um you have a picture, so such as a kundalini experience. It's the same thing as the cerebral spinal fluid rising, or what some would say the Christ oil. The Christ oil ignites at Golgotha, which is the place of the skull. And so from that too, that is at the 33 degree within the brain, which is why we have 33-degree Masons and other different things like this, secret societies. And so all this intercorrelation is connected to the I am, it's connected to Christ or the Christ consciousness. So if all of us were to do this process, if all of us were to, I guess you could say, marry within ourselves or get married within ourselves, then we would actually see a full new earth. It would be more of a higher dimensional earth. And that higher dimensional earth is what we call Christ coming back to the planet, or the Christ descension, which is heaven to earth. And that's because we are all living in heaven within our own minds, within our own individuality. And it's not, I wouldn't even say inner individuality like it's a personification or to personify something or to put a name to it. It's more like a renewal. And it's the renewal of our mind. It's the renewal of our hearts. It's the transcendence of the physical plane. And these things are connected with breath work. They're connected with meditation. They're connected with, you know, um, discovering the power of who you really are and not who we've been told to be our whole lives. So that's kind of where I'm at, brother.
bro, that's exactly where we are. I believe. And you mentioned so much, right? And how do these all intersect? They all do. We all see it. And I think the key elements that intersect are the what practical practices we can apply ourselves, which help us navigate, because there's so much out there, so much information, but what really will have the most direct benefit to us as we
Right.
go through this journey. to, like, as you said, if sacred secretion is one of the elements that you want to reach, you're actually reaching for Christ consciousness, which is you purifying your mind, body, spirit, and being reborn. That's why it's called reborn Christians, reborn
Right. Right.
Christos, meaning the purified one. So
Right. The
also the
anointed,
oil,
the anointed being.
anointed. Yeah.
And
So
that
like even
anointment is oil, and that oil is Christ oil. That is the purification of your body, because your soul is so
yeah.
bright it eradicates all the darkness within the body's temple.
Yes, yes. That is your body's physiological manifestation of your purified self.
Beautiful, beautifully said.
Yeah, right. So I know you get it. I love it. I
Yes.
love it. So that's one aspect of it, but that's not the end. What I've learned, what I'm learning, as we all are in our different stages, the point is to experience each moment without resistance, because the without the resistance is the path towards that awakening. Not, oh, chasing. I need to seek this to figure it out. What's the next technique? What's the next information? What's the next thing that I can figure out? If that works for me, it will this take me to that goal, which I think is outside of me again. So a lot of the confusing part comes from, I believe, the externalization of all of this. Like it's
Right.
all outside of us,
Like
right?
kind of how Neuro Knowledge said, shout out to Neuro Knowledge, uh, that blasphemy is going outside of yourself. It's
Yeah, yeah,
externalization,
yeah.
it's seeking validation other than internal validation, internally knowing, internally confiding in oneself. And that
Mm-hmm.
oneself is not your ego. It's not referred to as your body or your name or your birth date. It's not something like that, or your skin color, or what gender you are, but it has something that goes way beyond, which is the thing observing all of those things. It's observing the mind,
Which
it's
goes
observing the brain, it's observing the heart, it's observing the emotions, it's observing the physical body in movement, which we talk about this in breatharian consciousness. We talk about this on breatharian retreats. We talk about this in a multitude of places. So we get it. You get it, bro.
I get it, I get it. Yeah. Yeah. So that what you were just saying actually is the, like, it's the realization of who we are, that the self with the capital S, as RJ Spina would say it. Shout out to RJ Spina. So the S with the capital self, with capital S, is your true self,
Right.
not the body going through pain or the body going through healing, but the observer of the experience of going through pain, destruction, and healing and restoration.
Right.
So you're the whole thing. You're the whole shebang. You're the alpha and the omega. You're the
Right.
observer of the beginning and the end, and you're the continuation after.
Yeah.
That's how.
Imagine convincing God that he's a human being.
Right, exactly, exactly. Yeah. What makes it interesting is that why is there so much, like, opposition to that goal which we are trying to get to, right? Sacred secretion, um, unlocking the I am, hearing the I am, being the I am, consciously creating your reality. So, like, why is that not our default state? What do you think?
So I truly believe that most of the system is completely set up for the unrealization of oneself, the unactualization of oneself. And to quote Hobson, I think it's because the people who are currently in power, currently, I'm not saying that it won't change to a different currency or a different currently, but it's because they can benefit from it. I believe it's because there is some form of benefit that can come from not everyone realizing or recognizing themselves, but that doesn't mean, so I don't think that it's necessarily light vibrations that are in power, if that makes sense. I think that it makes sense to most people um who get it. And so the higher frequency that we're going to start to operate on, we're going to call forth um, ourselves to lead. We're going to start to be more like a Luxembourg, where we are. Um, it was created after the Treaty of Vienna, by the way, which is ultimately beings who they live within Europe, or they operate as, they operate with Europe and stuff, but they actually are their own sovereign state. They're their own sovereign being. And I think that that's the same thing that is going to happen, which is why they crucified Christ and a multitude of things, let's say in the physical, which is that, there was this being. Imagine this, guys. Imagine this, okay? I know that you guys all hear what I'm saying, but imagine this, that there's this being and they want you to buy clothes, they want you to buy objects, they want you to buy idols, they want you to buy drugs, they want you to buy food, they want you to buy all this stuff that you know that you don't need. You know that you don't need. I know I know that you don't need it. Okay? And so we all understand, we're all in the awareness that we don't need it. But it takes a while for you to get there. And so that's why you meet somebody at chapter 12 who's at chapter 12. That's why we're having this conversation. If we're to have this conversation with someone at chapter 2, they would say that we're blasphemers. They would say that we are idiotic. They would say that we're out of our minds, stuff like this. So the whole thing about this is, ultimately, imagine somebody comes to Christ and is just like, they're trying to give him food. They're trying to give him all these different objects. They're trying to give him clothes and jewelry and all this stuff. And they can do that. Like it's not like they don't have the free will to do that. Of course they have the free will to do that, but he doesn't need that stuff to be happy. He could sit, he could do his breath work, he could do his meditation. Imagine somebody who is not only just doing that, but then teaching people, hey, you can also be sustainable just like me. Oh my gosh. Hey, Kevin, by the way, hey, I learned all this stuff to where I don't need any of this stuff around me, and I could be grateful. I could be in blissful states, which is blissed, not blessed, but blissed. We're in blissed states. We're just blissed out the whole time. Okay.
Mhm.
Hey, wouldn't you love to learn that? And he's like, yes, I would love to learn that. I've heard your name. I've gotten to get to know you. Da 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 da. Like I feel like I resonated with all these different things that were going on. And so then he would call people forward, and those would be his disciples, which are disciplined beings. They're people who want to do the disciplines of the rabbi or of the leader or of the monk. And monk does not, it's not just because there's monks and nuns in Christianity too, or Egyptian Christianity, just so you guys know. So it is just a term and a name. But
Yeah.
ultimately, this disciplined, this disciple would be like, all right, I'll follow you. And then eventually they would drop all their stuff. So what would happen if everybody started doing that? Then the whole pyramid scheme would collapse, where there would be like there would be some of the people from the bottom who didn't know their own self-actualization start to actualize in this life, start to realize so many different things that, hey, all I need is breath work. I don't even really need to eat that much. I don't even really need to sleep that much. I don't even really need to learn that much. All I have to do is really learn about who I am. And then where do I find that? Within me. And so when you start to have when you start to have that knowledge, you don't necessarily require some of those external validations from school, from I would even say church, because there's a lot of people who are studying and they don't necessarily have to go to those places, or even work. They don't have to go to those three main sources of I guess you could say income, but not even income. It's just like sources of incoming energy. When they start to be the more initiator and the autonomous initiator of their own initiation.
Yeah. So like what you just mentioned is like all of these aspects of participation in society. So this old paradigm of needing to participate in society has created the seeking, is because the experiencer is not at peace with the experience.
Right.
So since
Right.
not he or she is not at peace with the experience, the moment that there is an opportunity or a hint that maybe the truth is there or will be presented, the seeker takes it. And that's why you had the disciples, anybody who's really seeking. You all know what I'm talking about.
Right.
I think we're getting at is that where we are is a place where we forget who we are to go through the process of remembering who we are. Right. And
So true.
what becomes interesting about it is that the different levels of experience hold different levels of awakening or realization or being conscious of the previously unconscious. So where I see where we are right now, that's why that's all there, is because collectively we are at that point wherein we are getting to choose our timelines. So that's how we're all waking up in our different levels. So we get to choose our timeline or which reality we would like to experience based on
5D or 3D.
5D or 3D, which is just the vibration of how you feel inside yourself.
Right.
So
So can
depends.
I ask you a question, and then
Yeah.
keep furthering along? But how would you say that you choose your timeline? What are some ways that you choose your timeline for the people who are on chapter 7 instead of chapter 12? How do you choose your timeline, Kevin?
Brilliant question. I think the answer to that comes with, first of all, knowing who you are, right? Because that's the first thing, know thyself, the first mandate of life. The second would be love who you are. Because if you don't know yourself, can you love yourself?
Mm.
So the next one would be to create, to be. By being, you are creating, which is the concept of 0 point energy. So I get to know
Yes,
that.
yes.
So in being who you are, like what timeline do you want to be? I think that's when you're most authentic with yourself. So when you know who you are, you know what's for you and what's not for you. And the process now is loving who you are now, even if you don't think you or see you are the person you want to be.
Right.
Because that's where the eyesight contradicts the mind sight, which you're trying to cultivate. So the left brain is still dominating while your right brain is, no, I believe I am over there eventually. Then you're not, oh no, I am actually now here in this present moment, who I choose to be. And how that materializes the timeline, meaning allowing matter to collapse around you in resonance with the desire, is by thinking, feeling, acting, entertaining only thoughts, behaving in a way that you feel most true to yourself. That's why authenticity. So that's the process there. And I believe that's why we have multiple avenues of exploration of our consciousness, right? That's why we all have our different levels, is because as we go through that, we are waking up to who we are in our own way. And the thing there is that God gets to experience every minutia of whatever creation has to offer, which
Right.
RG also explained, which I just got this from him, which makes so much sense to me.
Yeah.
So that's my
Which
explanation on that.
ultimately means like the atomic level, the atomic, the even the minute aspects of negativity can show you more of who you are, which we talked
Yeah.
about. It's like you can fail your way to success. You
Yes,
can get better by messing up.
that's one of the things of this realm. In making you forget who you are, it teaches you duality, right? So now being naked from being clothed now creates an imbalance in your thought, because being naked is bad. Being clothed is good. That's why who told you you were naked? That's the first
Right,
question of God to Adam and Eve. So who told you were naked? Why? It's because it was them who told themselves in their mind, "Oh no, I'm naked."
right,
Because otherwise, why would they identify with that character of being naked and identify with that character of being naked being less than a character who is clothed? See where I'm going with the
right.
we get our value. That's why everything gets externalized and becomes easier to externalize, since we forget we're already whole and complete. So now we're seeking outside validation from clothes, success, money, relationships, well, anything really, which distracts us from realizing we are whole and complete. You know, one God consciousness, all of that good stuff. Excuse me.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with 100% of what you're saying, bro. 111% of what you're saying, I'm definitely
Yeah,
resonating
yeah,
with.
yeah.
Um, there's a couple of things that I really want to chime in. I want to cover, which is the aspect and the concept of sustainability. and how that's also connected to, spiritual awakening, I guess you could say, or the great spiritual awakening, or Christ consciousness, or new earth, 5D new earth, choosing your parallel realities, choosing your realities, quantum jumping, quantum leaping, any of these types of things. But ultimately, one of the things that I want to cover is sustainability, that we are already natural sustainable beings. I talk with Jerome Shaw quite often about these different types of things, about breatharian, and that we are whole sustained beings. Anything on like sustainability, even if it has to do with like gardening, or if it has to do with like solar panels, or if it has to do like with anything like that, anything that comes to mind of like how this is also interconnected um with our spiritual walk and our spiritual
Awakening.
journey.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, bro. How would I relate that? I think I would relate it to what Nero Knowledge said in his most recent video, which were the two M's of the universe. The first being magnify, the second being maintain. So the universe magnifies and maintains your frequency. That's what he said. And that makes sense. That's why we experience and go through cycles of what we don't like or what we do like.
Right.
So
And if you
where it
stay on the
comes,
proper maintenance vibration, and then you can even magnify that. And that's why some people kind of live that um like a specific vibrational life.
yeah. I think to add to that, everybody's exactly where they need to be because that's
Mm,
their higher self choice without them knowing it. And until we learn that everything is perfect and in already equilibrium, that's part of how we'll heal. Because if we see everything as already whole, complete, at peace, balance, then that means we're reflecting what's already in us, right? And then and the journey to getting to that is being forgetting who we are, figuring out who we are, exploring all of these different maybe practices, disciplines, techniques, and these really are for our consciousness, which is the awareness, the self, to grow and figure out, oh, this is for me. Oh, this is not for me. Oh, this works for me. Oh, this doesn't work for me anymore. And as the consciousness expands, it's like what Neuro Knowledge said, the universe loves systems and it loves systems. That's why it creates balance. And balance is what we each seek for that peace, right? That internal peace. And as we go through life, these experiences, learnings, trials, wins, losses, we expand our awareness to be able to experience more of life without attaching to it and
right.
just allowing life to flow through us more and not being attached to it as we learn that we are consciously creating it. So from unconsciously creating to consciously creating now. So now if we're consciously creating and I am creating me as a character, Kevin Poe is the how would I say it?
The
Is the
identification of you.
no, is the anchor being in my reality.
There you
While
oh yeah, yeah.
DC, right? Heads up to Deadpool. So while you
Yeah.
are, DC is the anchor being in his reality. So he is now, so we are now two different aspects of the multiverse having our own awakening. But as we awaken and as we be ourselves, just be authentic to us, oh, right? And having acceptance for everybody around us who is probably different with 8 billion expressions, right? So no longer being triggered by even violence or fear or destruction. And because that's, I think, how the consciousness expands. That's how we grow. And that's how we remember who we are. And as we remember who we are, we actually lose interest to what's outside because we're already so at peace with inside ourselves
So
and
true.
cultivating that reflection. So now I am just reflecting and attracting people at this resonance which we are speaking about. And now this is how we create that, oh, we're now in this frequency of this specific reality where what we're talking about you can consider high vibration, meaning higher consciousness, and thus creating the reality which we all experience collectively on the same higher frequency. So like that's when I think this makes more sense with letting go because we're not in control of that. All we have to do is get out of the way of ourselves.
Right. Get out of our own way. And the
Yeah.
own way and the self in this context is the lowercase self. We have to get out of the lowercase self, or I'm sorry, the uppercase self. We have to get out of the uppercase self way. And what does that mean? That's an identity with the lowercase self. It's also how can I how it's this is the concept of the spirit in the flesh, which is ultimately as you start to feed your spirit more, which is you start to do more fasting, you start to do more breath work, you start to realize that reality is how you create it, how the words you use. When you start to operate on these wavelengths, then you start to dissociate more from your flesh. And you're so integrated into that art piece, into that masterpiece, into that artistic masterpiece, whatever you're creating, that you ultimately forget to eat for a couple of days because you're so in your like, I want to express this beautiful, emotional, mental, masterpiece to people while I'm painting this picture or sculpting this sculpture or whatever type of creation that you like to create. And so sometimes
Flow
you do
state.
forget to eat. What's up?
Flow state, sorry. To cut you
Flow
off. Flow
state, yeah,
state.
exactly. And
Yeah,
two,
yeah,
like
yeah.
one thing that we were talking about a little bit earlier, this wasn't on record, but how I do kind of want to mention it, which is like we never really mentioned the word colonizer and stuff like that, but if you really think about it, to think that the world is outside of you, uh, or existence is not you. That's really what it is like you have to start to look at nature as you. Like everything
Mm-hmm.
around you is you. Okay, that can only be built because someone like you, like you have to exist for this to be created. We've seen that video where it says if human beings were to be eradicated from the planet, everything would grow back and all this type of stuff. Okay, so there's one aspect to it. But did you see any new buildings being built? No. Did you see any trees being chopped down? No.
Yeah,
Did you
yeah,
see
yeah.
anything polluted? No, you didn't see anything polluted. And so you have to start to see that it's by how we change our ways of expressing, but that also comes from ways that we are impressing ourselves. And so what are we impressing ourselves with? What are our impressions? What are our first impressions, our second impressions, and what are we being impressed by with knowledge onto our belief systems? And I think that this is chiming in with that we must not look out at this outside. It's not outside. It is me. Our environment is us. And so we've
Yeah, yeah.
proven this scientifically that if we clean up an environment, it also has us clear more space in our own heads. The same thing
Mm-hmm.
is if we chop a tree down, we're kind of associating with the reality, well, that tree is not me, so it doesn't matter. But that tree is you because that tree offers you oxygen and you offer it carbon dioxide. We're in symbiosis with it. You cut it off too much, there will be acidity on the planet. If we plant more, there'll be more alkalinity on the planet. And I see different like colonization to this and the different mindsets that the lack of knowledge comes with colonization.
Yeah, well, I get what you're saying there because colonization, in a way, tries to control how you think to be able to subscribe to their system.
Mm.
That's basically what all colonizers did. Okay, we're coming here now and we're gonna help you be a better person by sharing to you what we've got working for us. And if you don't subscribe to that, we gotta kill you.
Literally,
So,
dude. Like we were just in Hawaii. We were in Hawaii. Me and my lady, she's my fiance now, so that was really cool too. We got engaged there, but we were in Hawaii and there was this time where they said, "Oh yeah, this place had just been bought and they're going to put a hotel and they're going to put a mall here." And I'm just looking around and everything's just green. There's tons of insects, tons of animals, fresh air, fresh breath, water streams. It's just beautiful. And we're just like looking around like what would make you want to do that? Like what would make you want to go against nature unless you are against nature? And
I get,
you see what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah. I get that. That's a valid perspective. It's just something that I realize where I am personally. I kind of transcended or let go of the notion that life and the earth needs help.
Mm,
Because if I say life and earth, then earth needs help, then I need to believe that life and earth is weak.
right. And I
So
am on the same wavelength as you. Like I completely agree. Like I really do get the concept that I don't think that the earth needs help. I think that the earth can almost empower herself if she really wants.
oh, definitely. In fact, if you think about it, it is the notion of what we believe that creates our reality, right? We agree with that, which is the dual split experiment. What we focus on grows. Um, Quantum physics, as you observe an object, you change, and as you change, the object changes, and that
Right.
creates a cycle of creation, which is the
The
quantum.
observed is not separate of the observer.
Yeah. So the way that we learn who we are now, oh, we are the creators of our reality, then anything outside of us doesn't really matter as long as we know that we're not externalizing that belief. And beliefs in themselves are actually added to the I am, right? Because the belief, I believe, or I am, I know. So I believe I know. It's like that the energy of the words, it's I belief is more external, or it's putting your belief in something outside of you. Whereas in knowing, which is the path to the I am, which is the sacred secretion um physiological event. So I think that's where eventually when we get to that, or as we get to that, we're letting go of like, oh, this used to be bad or this used to be good. And even if you see people saying, oh, this bad, this good, you knowing who you are, you're still operating from that knowingness. So you're actively creating that reality wherein maybe for both you and I, it's like where people are waking up to their awareness. And since they wake up to their awareness, they have more conscious action. And that conscious action brings more a harmonic relationship with ourselves and in relation with nature,
Hmm.
back to nature. And for example, do you think the world is overpopulated?
No, definitely not. But
Definitely not.
I think that if it's put in the media that it is, it could sway someone's belief system, which is
Yes,
exactly reiterating this exact self-concept of what you're saying. Is
exactly.
Yeah, keep going, brother.
So that's why they're saying that is because all of this matrix, whatever thoughts of separation, lack, it's part of the belief that you're separate.
That you're not
So
whole, that you're
yeah, that's
not in
why
completion, that you're not connected with everything else, including all people, all animals, all life, everything around you. You are
exactly. Yes,
in synonymous relationship with.
yes, and believing in like believing in that news or whatever separation fear base will keep you stuck in that frequency. So it's okay. Maybe there are those people or souls who that's their choice. They wanna stay at that frequency, which is part of the creation process still, right? So
Right.
seeing that now as not being triggered, you just know. So you know that you don't even you know to the point of like, I get this. I get the magic trick. So you let go
Right.
of that and still focus on your vibration being, yeah, I know I'm safe. I know there is peace. I know I am enough, right? So in this how do I say it, man? It's like I'm sure everybody who's listening now went through the process of trying to figure out what outside of them could help themselves. And where we
I know
both
I
are,
did.
yeah, I know I did as well. And where we both are now, we are letting go of things that no longer align with what makes us feel whole and complete. So those could be beliefs, habits. relationships, whatever. And where we are now, since we are consciously choosing, we're actually, as we speak right now, consciously creating. So the new earth is the present moment which we're both interacting right now. So like this frequency of this video would be on the frequency of like the new earth that we're creating. And what's interesting fact about, since we're talking about earth, I know I rambled a bit, but the
Oh,
point I
you're
wanted
good. This is a perfect ramble, bro.
the point I wanted to get was that the fact that humans occupy less than 3-4%
Of the
of
entire
of
planet.
the of the entire planet. We're not overpopulated, we're just over congested. So imagine having,
Cities.
cities are over congested, and they're
Cities are
over.
batteries. Cities are
Yes.
batteries.
So cities are batteries because cities right now are attracting the people to the cities, and the people who are attracted to the cities believe that they need to follow something outside of their bodies to create value for themselves,
I was
which.
just having this conversation. I was just having this conversation that what is the psychology? What is the psychoanalysis? What is the brain psychology? How do we analyze that of people who go to cities? People who go to cities have the same notion. They have the same mindset that I must be dependent upon my neighbor and my neighbor must be dependent upon me rather than I must be self-reliant and self-sustainable. And that self-sustainable is not just growing food because there are breatharians who are self-sustainable. They do not eat food. So it comes from something internal. Okay, these
Mhm.
internal beings are saying, "Hey, I've never been this is anybody in a city is pretty much saying that I'm an internal being who has externalized that any of my worth. And so I pretty much have to go outside of myself to be validated. And so that's ultimately what a city on a grand scheme is. Okay. And we might say that, hey, cities have helped us build this, cities have helped us do this, cities have helped us do this, towns have helped us do this. But ultimately, somewhere we lost the one, and how the power of the one is the all. Okay. Where we started gravitating more towards the all is the one. And so we've started building on these huge cities, these huge mega cities. And the funny thing is it, and even these big countries. But the funny thing is that if you were to just go down to the individual and you were to teach the individual proper individual uh, proper sacred secretion, proper cerebral spinal fluid, if you were to teach them proper breath work, proper meditation, proper sustainability, and then that were to be amplified and multiplied, we would have different ways. I'm not saying cities are bad. I think cities can be recreated better. I'm saying that if every person in a city grew a garden, you wouldn't necessarily need to go to a grocery store to rely upon food. You would go right down there, they would come to you. It would be a little bit different. I think that that's more the 5D where everyone has a garden, where everybody has solar panels, where everybody has clean water. And people can call that socialism if you want. I don't think that that is. I think that that's just normal. And I think that everyone should have Wi-Fi. And I'm not saying that it should be free or we should ask someone else to pay for it. I'm saying that we are so in our power that we can do these types of things, which we know all of us need and all of us can be empowered through this.
Mm-hmm. Very well said, TC. You put together why the whole paradigm exists. The matrix anyway. But the thing about that, what you said, how it's evolving, which it does begin with the individual. That's why we're more powerful than we realize, because the one is part of the whole and the whole is the one.
Right.
So growing in consciousness is actually us realizing who we truly are and aligning with what is authentic to us. I think naturally just is that evolution. So eventually, like with the alignment of maybe, let's say, blockchain technology, digital money, right? So this is actually the best time to figure out who you are and start creating, because that creation now, being authentic, will naturally attract wealth and abundance in whatever form, right? It's not necessarily money, it's experiences, it's love being given back to you. It's people just supporting you just because you resonate with
And
their
that
internal
also
being.
includes people who do not resonate. You will, because you're in abundance, you also could attract people who resent you and judge you for being abundant.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
As
that's
I'm
really
not
that's
saying to focus on that, but yes, you
yeah,
can
but
attract people like that.
yeah, they'll attract you. You're attracting people. Anybody you attract really is either loving you or triggered by you. So if they're triggered by you, they're either just jealous, angry, or mad at themselves because they want to do something that you're doing, but they're not allowing themselves to do that.
Oof.
That's where that's where it comes
Pay
from.
for the people in the back.
Right, right. So that's why it's like where we are now with the non-duality. We can say, "Oh, you're stupid, you're bad, you're good," or whatever. But you can be that, and I can say that to you without labeling you that you're attached to that forever. I just know that that's the character you're playing or resonating as. So you know what? You get where I'm going with this. Like
Yeah,
that's how that's how basically we that's how basically we allow ourselves to bloom. So, what I mean by allowing ourselves to bloom, by allowing our consciousness to expand, and to expand, it's more of letting go and relaxing and breathing out. So, as we breathe out and
exhaling.
breathe, yeah, as you inhale and exhale to that level of peace, you know what I'm talking about? That level of
Yes, bliss,
equanimity,
bliss and peace
blissing out, equanimity. So like that's I think the personal path that every person
is
is on
destined for.
is on, yes, without realizing it. That's why you said destined for it, right? So I think
They are
we
predestined. We are predestined as God's children. This is biblical. We are predestined as God's children. Like
yes,
that is what predestiny is that because you're born, you have a right to experience Christ within you on all levels, on all planes, forever and ever.
yes. One thing I'd like to add, since I'm sure this will reach a bunch of people, would be, excuse me, would be the thought of like the narcissist. So one thing that RJ Spina said about the narcissist, which resonated with me, and I've never heard anybody else say that, was that the reason we are here is not to be the victims of the narcissist, but to experience what it is that life, the experience or creation has to offer, all minutia, good and bad. And that's why the narcissists are here, because they need to play the role of the bad guy for you to be the good guy.
Right.
They are in a way catalyst events for the creation of consciousness. And
For
that's
the exponential
their path.
growth of your journal, for the
Exactly.
exponential growth of your spiritual journey, they are, like you said, the catalyst. They are the enzyme, the enzymatic process to where they throttle you forward in your good
Yes.
purpose.
Yes. And what's beautiful about that is like people saying that, oh, because he was a narcissist, whatever, they still haven't internalized that they are narcissists themselves in certain ways. Because narcissism is actually just a survival pattern. That's basically what it is. And the narcissist is just in such a deep survival programming that empathy does not make sense for it. that's
So
that's
freaking true. It doesn't
that's an
make sense.
observation. Yeah, that's just an observation from where I am with my personal experience.
And
Is
also,
because I
too, do
think
you think that that connects to the shadow, the human consciousness shadow?
yes, because they need to be unconscious for you to become conscious. Because I realize a lot of things that I'm able to explain to you right now is because I experienced the complete opposite. and and
Exactly.
if I experience the complete opposite, but now I'm more embodying my bliss, my true self, my I am, right? And I know I'm on that journey, and I know I am at the end of that journey, or so to speak, or that succession of being realizing myself. Then every person on that path becomes a contributor to the peace I have now. So how could that be bad? How could the narcissist be bad in that sense? And
Because it
that's
was
why
exactly what you needed.
Yes, exactly. That's why the way that RJ Spina explains to it, that the narcissists are on mercy missions to play the role that they need to play for you to play the role that you choose to play. So that's just one thing that I like to share, so people listening can help eradicate thoughts of being victims. Because
Yep.
at the end of the day, for us to reach um for us to reach the goal of that internal peace and that internal unification, marrying ourselves, our masculine and feminine, is to know that we are whole, complete, safe in our own skin, in the present moment, because that's where the healing starts, which I learned for me. What my blessing in the past year was that I didn't realize it until a few months ago, or even a few moments ago, right? Like that, everything that's been given to me, all trials, mishaps, whatever, or things I didn't want, was for me to just observe and realize how everything is happening for me without me trying to force things.
Right.
Does that make sense? With
Yep.
me out trying to force things is because the matrix, or the mind, or everything outside of us convinces us that we need something outside of us to be whole and complete. So therefore, not or agreeing to anything powerful outside of us that can overpower us or hold power over us, is a better way to say it, is part of the illusion. Is part
100%.
of the illusion. So like the narcissist is part of the illusion. And that's why, even if, yeah, they're real but they're an illusion, is because you as the experiencer, as the self, is the anchor being of the reality you're experiencing, which is the universe, YOU, you're creating unconsciously, then consciously.
Within the
So
multiverse of multiple universes or multiple people who are also
yes, yes.
operating under their own universe anchored being.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah,
Exactly that.
am I getting you right?
Yes, yes. Because what you're saying is that we are all experiencing different realities in the now from our own self, capital
Concept.
S perspective, concept. And right now, I'm sure most are listening right now are still from the small s, probably, because you're still shedding ego, shedding limiting beliefs, purifying your mind, healing. And I a big part of it is really not being attached to what old beliefs are. The way RJ Spina explained it is that if I am here now, my energy field, I'm emitting an energy field, right? The 0 point. I'm sustainable as I am right now because I am sending a signal out of since I'm blissing out. But as we go through life, I hope I'm not butchering this. As we go through life, we adopt certain beliefs. And those beliefs, let's say, are in the form of marble. So that marble now enters your energy field. So that marble holds weight. So your energy field, like gravity, knows will collapse and it will create that different ripple. So now these marbles around you are creating resonances of belief systems you have adopted.
Mm.
So the process now becomes of taking out these marbles. So you're no longer allowing
Things that no longer serve
electromagnetic
you
electromagnetic uh frequencies of beliefs that no longer serve you. So that's what you're taking out.
for your
And
energy
eventually,
field to be more
yeah, and
more an auric
eventually
resonance.
your auric resonance,
Rainbow
your
body,
toroidal your toroidal field, which is
your
your
toroidal
energetic,
field, your
yeah,
Taurus. Yeah, yeah.
becomes more more vibrant, because you, the self, the mind, body, spirit, is now authentic with yourself. You're acting more freely, you're acting without fear. And fear is actually it's a big illusion in this world, I would say. A lot of people are afraid of so many things, and it could be as simple as It could be as simple as the limiting belief of social contracts. Oh, if I do this, I'll be missed out, or I'll have to not fit in, and that's gonna stop you without you realizing it, right? So yeah,
I talk
yeah,
about that
Norman.
stuff all the time on this channel. And I think too, like, I guess one way to conclude this video would be to be like, what are some good ways for people to first and foremost empower themselves? I can mention a few that I feel like, and then two is you as well. And like, what are ways that help you recognize, become more aware of such, let's say, narcissists or lower vibrational beings? What do you do if you have those types of things? How do you pull out marbles out of your auric field and stuff like this? And just, I think some of these questions are really good to hit on. And some of these
Mm-hmm.
people who are watching probably already know what they're supposed to do and some of the techniques that
Mm-hmm.
they're supposed to do. I would say too that some that work for me is breath work. Breath work helps relieve pain and pressure from the body, helps you kind of release tension that you didn't know that you had in your body, which is something that Kevin was just talking about. As
Yeah.
well as I believe the sacred secretion and the moon cycles are all interconnected with the so there's 8 moon cycles, and if you go into the actual amplification, there might even be 16 moon cycles. But if you really start to look at the moon as uh accumulating light, shedding light, giving light, changing the emotional tides, regardless whether it's more throttled forward or less throttled forward, as well as belief systems. We can go into Bashar, so belief systems and permission slips, and what you believe to be true, and self-concept. You can get into connection with Neville Goddard, law of assumption, where do I already believe that I have the greatest resonance frequency right now, or do I believe I have to go get it somewhere else, which is externalization of your own internal God nature and Christ nature within you. So I think that those are just some things that I would chime on is find the power of the great I am, find the power within yourself, find, all that stuff. So what about you, Kev?
I'm laughing because you're saying those are some things, bro. It's everything. So
That's funny. You're so right, man.
right. So okay, here basically what I wanted to say. Life is, in hindsight, at every moment, you either responding or reacting to yourself. So whatever you believe works for you, that's the best approach. And with so many people, hey, do this, do this, all that noise, which kind of pollutes your auric field, because now does this belief system work, whatever, whatever, whatever. It now becomes a process of, okay, how do I feel right now? Let's say I'm eating a Twinkie bar and drinking coffee. Let's say I put creamer in my sugar. Does that mean that I'm going far away from even that questioning is part of the purification? Because whatever you do, when you realize it, is divine, whole, complete you, an expression, and no longer attaching to this is bad for me, this is good for me, and just being, right? I think that is the best approach, is to observe how you're responding to yourself. Am I feeling guilty for doing this? Uh am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling shame? Am I feeling anger with myself, with the present moment? Why? Why am I feeling this? And the process of purification would be only when the triggers come, right? Because when you don't know a wound is there until you feel it's a sting, um like you go, oh, ow, oh, I didn't know I was cut there. Same with the trigger. Like you're in meditation, you're going throughout your day, then a thought comes in of maybe whatever the thought is, right? And now you'll ask yourself, oh, why is that thought there? Why is that thought keeping me from the present moment? Right? So now your thought takes you out of the present moment because there's a belief in you that is still believing that you need something outside of yourself. So I believe this is the process of every person tailor fitting their life experiences to themselves, is really asking themselves, okay, why do I feel what I feel? Because you're obviously gonna feel something at every given moment. The question is why you're feeling that way. So until you're feeling good about yourself, then you're still holding to something that no long that doesn't really resonate with your true self. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the point of what I'm rambling on about right now, right? It's like with everything we just mentioned, breathwork practices, this discipline, cold plunges, working out, accessing Akashic records, nervous system, sacred secretion, all of the good stuff comes when you're good with yourself,
Right.
right?
Capital
So all of
self.
the good stuff comes when you're good with yourself. So no more judging yourself, thinking this habit is gonna derail you from your goal. So these are, you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
These are
Right.
the things that I personally would have to deal with. Like, oh, this thought, why is it here? Oh, because I'm attached to this belief. Oh, and it's been there for years, right? That's why it's a process to purify. It doesn't happen overnight because you haven't been awake that long, I guess. Like I would have to admit, I haven't been awake longer than I've been alive. So like Nero says, right? Shout out to Nero Knowledge again. Give yourself grace. Don't be too hard on yourself. There are I share this is because I would listen to or see the content of some spiritual coaches or creators, and sometimes their theme is like, oh, I'd be shamed if I was doing what you were doing. I don't want to feel that shame. But that's you identifying with shame. But if you're a spiritual being having a human experience, then you're not shame at all. You're just the experiencer of shame. So to unattach from the experience which is giving me shame, guilt, or fear, I have to disidentify with the experience myself. The self is not the experience. The self is the experiencer. So that's why I said that the most important thing I believe is to observe how we react with ourselves, because whatever we're experiencing right now is a reflection, which is a magnification, and the universe maintaining what's inside of us. So if what you don't like, if you're experiencing something you don't like, or you're seeing something outside of you that you don't like, elites, control, big pharma, whatever, what inside you, why are you reacting that way? Why are you responding to yourself that way? Oh, maybe because you're still externalizing your power and you think that you need to logical or do something to avoid that pain or do this and that, that
Right.
we go back to that mental gymnastics. Yeah, what is the point of the what I'm trying to say, man? I think that's it. Like, just really knowing yourself, knowing how you're responding to yourself. Where I believe I am personally is, since I've known myself better, now I'm learning to love myself. And learning to love yourself is the process of seeing how you respond with life. Because sometimes you got that subconscious, counter frequency to your heart's desire, which is the one that's delaying or making you suffer more. So it's really like more purification. I don't say more because like might never end. That's not the point. It's just that there are just it's just part of the experience, our own individual experience. So like being spiritual is not shouldn't be a goal really. It's just knowing that the more you be your authentic self, that's just you more alignment with your goals.
Yeah. It's just an
Alignment with
awareness.
your
It's
goals.
not a goal.
Yeah.
Like
So
it's
yeah,
to be
thanks for letting me
aware of your
ramble a bit. See.
spirituality. It's not to be more spiritual.
Yes, exactly.
It might be to be connected more spiritually. That might be a physical desire that you're like, I want to be more connected spiritually, but in no way can we be more spiritual. We are as spiritual as we already are.
Yeah, I think you're saying that because the fact that you mentioned the sacred secretion, you're actually looking at an answer for the tangibility of your spirituality.
Right. And I think too that so ultimately I have not really tapped into the dark room connection and conversation. I did talk about DMT and how DMT is stored in the lungs when you do breath work and stuff. But ultimately, I would say like the greatest thing, guys, if this is going to take away from anything that I would say, for some of the most greatest realizations, the transformations of our lifetime is ultimately to go breatharian, whether that's a breatharian 3 or 4, and experience that at least to some degree. As well as because you could do very little food or very little water, you're not eating or not drinking ultimately, then you would go into a dark room. Okay. So you would go into a dark room. You would go into a dark room for as long as you really want to. Okay. And during those times, you'd practice breath work, meditation, yoga, qigong. You practice bodily calisthenics. You'd practice sleeping. There's no
Mhm.
work that you're really doing. It's just internal work. You'd work on your belief systems. You'd work on Vipassana, which is also just silence meditation or observing meditation, contemplation. You'd work on affirmations. You do anything that is internal. Okay.
Yeah.
During that time too, you do a lot of breath work, specifically breath work, as well as meditation. So it goes breath work and then meditation. Okay. So you enter a dark room, you start doing breath work and you do meditation. Those are the main two practices of everything. The first few days you're doing workouts and stuff like that just to maintain the body, help the body, and you're not eating and not drinking. That is the thing. Okay. When you go into a dark room, there is that paradox. It's kind of like when you start to see that you see the magic trick, as Kevin was saying, is when you go into a dark room, you actually start to see the inner light. Okay. When you go into a dark room, because the DMT will start to ignite. What you're doing with the breath work is you're raising your vibration, you're raising your energy to where you're starting to blossom that flower, you're starting to blossom that lotus flower that was born in the darkness, that was born in the muddy waters, and you're releasing that pearl. That pearl is moving straight through. We would say Sushumna, which is just the center pillar. Okay. Or we'd say uh, the middle pillar in Kabbalah, or a Kundalini where both of the snakes is being released, and the snakes being released is the snake being released out of you, meaning that you don't have any snakes in you, which means that you don't operate or also attract snakes. Think about that psychoanalyzation of that, and that concept of that psychology, that if you release the snakes, you can attract snakes, you can't be a snake. You see what I'm saying? You're on a different frequency than those types of creatures. Okay. Here's another thing. When you go into a dark room, let's say for 12 days or 14 days, and you do breath work, you start to go through the dark room process, which is melatonin. Melatonin builds up to 25 milligrams. Then it goes to pinealine, okay? Pinealine, which is the pine cone, which is pretty much gasoline for your pine cone, which is your pineal gland. It starts to move away from that the fluoridization of your pineal gland, the calcification of your pineal gland, which is just calcium calcifying that pineal gland. Then you move into NN-DMT. That NN-DMT is about 5 to 7 days in a complete pitch black dark room. Okay. And then during this period of time, this is when you start to astral project. You actually start to leave the body. You start to have experiences outside of the 3D. You start to experience all time is now. You start to fly. You start to do all these different types of things. Then you go into DMT, which is NN-DMT. I'm sorry, the first one was 5-MeO DMT. Second one is NN-DMT, where you also are in hyperspace and you can do telepathy. You can have multiple conversations without words. You could read people's minds. You could see through walls. You're Superman. I'm not even joking about this. Like, I know that you guys might laugh, ha ha ha, but I'm like literally like giving you guys the actual what this really is and what we truly are capable of. And it's because there's such an impressionable realization internally. So internal, eternal, impressionable, empress, emperor. It's all internal. And so when you go internal, that is eternal. When you go into the unseen realms, that is when it's going to be forever. And so that is the cultivation that we must realize, is that these practices, yes, there is that self where it's like, you don't necessarily have to do the practice. Okay. But there are reasons also for the practice and cultivating it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely, TC. For me, it was a lot of stretching, released a lot of tension, and the stretching only comes with the breath work. You can't stretch without being conscious of your breathing.
Yeah.
So, and if you want to relate why breath work is so important, and I say this to myself because when I when I allow myself to get distracted, I forget. So I forget that the inhales and exhales should be the basis of my being, my grounding, because the inhales and exhales are the ones and zeros of the reality you're coding. So
Literally.
like, right? So it's like the inhales are the ones and zeros, but they're not separate, right? The inhale and exhale is just one motion. So what I mean by, I think that is in relation to how we marry ourselves in the present moment by the
It's the
masculine and
figure eight.
feminine.
The
Yeah, the
figure
masculine
eight.
and the feminine as well coming into that balance, which is only in your mind, right? You can balance your mind by the thoughts you entertain and your self-concept, your self-belief. And I think that's
Brain
a big
hemisphere synchronization. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about
yeah, yeah,
brain
yeah.
hemisphere
Hemisync.
synchronization,
Yeah, hemisync.
hemisync,
Yeah.
brain hemisphere synchronization, as well as brain and heart coherence, which if you
Yes,
actually look
definitely
at
brain
both
and
of those, it would be a cross. Okay. And then if you look at the CIA classification papers, you could see the consciousness planes. There's three planes that go through it, which create a triple. It's a 3D cross. Okay. In which creates the
yes.
cube and a multitude of things, guys. And I think that people who are listening to this really do understand and really do get this type of knowledge. And two, as well, y'all, is while you're doing this, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we will get you guys into contact with somebody who can answer the question, or we can answer the question. So
Oh yeah,
unless you
definitely.
have something else further to go on, Kevin, you let us know.
I just wanted to say, or I think this is a reminder also to myself that stop taking life too seriously. Remember that life is to be experienced, and the experience is not to be taken too seriously. It's to be allowed.
Yes.
It's to be allowed to happen. So that's part of spirituality. It's like letting go of what you kind of want to control, right? So outcomes, especially. So that's just me saying that because that's more of a reminder to myself. That's
Yeah.
my most recent personal breakthrough.
It'll
So yeah, I
resonate
just
with
wanted to,
it'll resonate with certain people too, which will be
yeah, I'm sure. So just want to thank everybody for listening and, you know, say hi to everybody on the journey. I'm sure everybody who gets it, man. That's the beautiful thing about it. That's the
I'll put
beautiful
all
thing
of
about it.
Kevin's information below too. If you want to follow him on Instagram or any of his other type of stuff, we could do that. Also, guys, he does run a really cool company. So if you guys are also trying to build stuff, we can hook you guys up that way as well. He definitely masters in automations and a multitude of other things. And so that's more of I guess, the 3D version of us. But this is definitely the connection. This is a podcast we want to do. And if this one hits really well too, which I'm pretty sure I think I can see that it will, we'll do a part two as well.
Yeah, sure. Excited to do that, brother. Anyway, thank you everyone. Thank you,
Yeah,
TC.
see you guys later. Have a wonderful day.
All right, bye-bye.